Hello everyone, you are going, we are going to do chapter first of history, writing and city life. We are going to speak the I give you notes of chapter history first, writing and city life. So let's start. City life began in Mesopotamia, the land between the Euphrates and the Tigris River that is now part of the Republic of Iraq. The name Mesopotamia is derived from the Greek word mesos, meaning middle, and Potamus, meaning river. Mesopotamian civilization is known for its prosperity, city life, rich literature, its mathematics, and astronomy. Mesopotamia's writing system and literature spread to the eastern Mediterranean, North Syria, and Turkey. After 2000 BCE, there was a connection between city life and writing. In the beginning of recorded history, the urbanized south was called Sumer and Akkad. After 2000 BCE, when Babylon became an important city, the term Babylonia was used for southern region. From about 1100 BCE, the Assyrians established their kingdom in the north and the region became known as Assyria. The first known language of land was Sumerian. It was gradually replaced by Akkadian around 2400 BCE. Aramia also trickled in. Sorry. When Akkadian speakers arrived. From 1400 BCE, Aramia also trickled in. This language was familiar to Hebrew after 1000 BCE. It was widely spoken. And next heading Mesopotamia and its geography. Northeast Iraq is a land of diverse environments. In the northeast, there are green plains, tree-covered mountain ranges with clear streams and wildflowers. There is enough rainfall to grow crops. Agricul- Agriculture began here between 7000 and 6000 BCE. In the north, there is a stretch of upland called a steppe, Steppe, steppe. Animal herding is a better livelihood here than agriculture. To the east, the tributaries of Tigris provide a routes of communication into the mountain of Iraq. The south is a desert, and this is where the first cities and the writing emerged. These deserts supported cities because the rivers Euphrates and Tigris carry loads of silt, fine mud. When their flood fertile silt is deposited. When Euphrates has entered the desert, its water flow out into small channels. In the past, these channels functioned as irrigation canals. That's why agriculture of southern Mesopotamia was the most productive. In the northeastern plains and the mountain slopes, sheep and goats produced milk, meat, and wool in abundance. Fish were available in rivers, and date palms gave fruit in summer. Next heading is the significance of urbanization. Significance of urbanization. Cities and towns are places where large population besides food production, urban economies comprises include trade, manufactures and services. City people depend on the products and services of other people. There is a continuous interaction among them. For example, the carver of a stone still require bronze tools that he himself cannot make. The bronze tool maker does not go himself out to go the metal, copper and tin. The division of labor is a mark of urban life. Further, there must be a social organization in place. Fuel, metal, stone, wood, etc. come from many different places. For city, manufacturers, so organized trade and storage is needed. There There are deliveries of grain and other food items from village to the city, so food supplies need to be stored, distributed. Urban economy often requires the keeping of writing records. Movement of goods into cities. In Mesopotamia, food resources were rich, but its mineral resources were few. Most part of South lacked stones for tools, jewels, and seals. The wood of the Iraq and date palm and poplar was not good for making carts, cart wheels, or boats. There was no metal for tools, vessels, or ornaments, so Mesopotamians exchanged their agriculture, produce, and textile for wood, copper, tin, silver, gold, shell, and various stones for Turkey and Iran. In In Turkey and Iran, there was less scope for agriculture. Efficient transport for trade and services is important for urban development. The cheapest mode of transportation is over water, but when animals are used to transport goods, the need animals are the need to be fed. The canals and natural channels of ancient Mesopotamia were routes of goods transport. And the next heading is the development of writing. If friends you are like our live stream and the notes of class 11th chapter history first, writing a city life. So please give thumb to motivate us. The development of writing. The societies have a language. This is a verbal communication. Writing is also a verbal communication, but in different ways. It means spoken sounds are represented in visible sign. The first Mesopotamian tablets were written around 3200 BCE. These contained picture like sign and numbers. These were about 5,000 lists of oxen, fish, lo- bread loaves, etc. Writing began when there was a need to keep records of transactions involved many people and a variety of goods. By 2600 BCE, writing was also used for making dictionaries, giving legal validity to land transfer, narrating the deed of king, and announcing the changes in the customary laws of the land. By 2600 BCE. The language the language was Sumerian, but it was gradually replaced by Akkadian. जो सुमेरियन लैंग्वेज थी वो ग्रेजुअली रिप्लेस्ड किसकी तरह की गई थी अकेडियन लैंग्वेज की तरह द्वारा आफ्टर 2400 BCE 2400 BC के बाद मेसोपोटामियन रोड ऑन टैबलेट ऑफ क्ले स्क्राइब या आप स्क्राइब भी कह सकते हैं या फिर कॉलीग्राफर भी बोल सकते हैं वुड बेट clay and pat it. He would carefully smoothen its surface, then science would be pressed onto the smoothened surface while it was still moist. After then, tablets were dried in the sun. Once the tablet dried, sign could not be pressed onto the tablet, so each transaction required a separate written tablet. Next heading is the uses of writing. There was a connection between city life, trade, and writing. This connection is brought out in a long Sumerian epic poem about Amarkar, one of the earliest ruler of Uruk. जो अमरकर था वो उरुक का एक किंग था. Uruk was a city. Paxlens it was known as the city. वो उरुक था तो एक सिटी की तरह कहा जाता था, सिटी माना जाता था. Amarkar is associated with the organization of first trade of Sumer. In the early days, Amarkar wanted lapis lazuli and precious metal for beautification of city temple. जो अमरकर था वो लैपिस lazuli और प्रीशियस मेटल चाहता था ब्यूटिफिकेशन ऑफ सिटी मेटल टेम्पल के लिए, इसी टेम्पल के लिए. सो ही सेंट हिज मैसेंजर टू चीफ ऑफ एरेट. तो वो अपने जो मैसेंजर है उसको एरेट के पास, चीफ ऑफ एरेट के पास भेजता है, क्योंकि वहां पे होते हैं जो लेस्पिस लेजुलिया और प्रीशियस स्ट्रॉन्ग मेटल है, वो वहां पे होते हैं. दिस वॉज अ वेरी डिस्टेंट लैंड. वो बहुत ही दूर था और अजीब सी जगह थी वहां पे जाने के लिए, मतलब उबड़ खाबड़ सी होती है जैसे. सो द मैसेंजर गेट ऑल द मैसेजेस मिक्स्ड अप बिकॉज ऑफ, और उस कारण वो सारे मैसेज भूल गया, सारे मैसेज मिक्स हो गए उसके. दैट ही कुड गेट. देन अमेरिकन फॉर्म क्ले. जब वो बारी बारी से आता जाता और भूल जाता, तब अमेरिकन ने क्ले से एक टैबलेट बनाया और मैसेंजर को दिया और उस पर लिख दिया, कुछ वर्ड्स डाउन किए. देन मैसेंजर गेव द रिटर्न टैबलेट टू द चीफ ऑफ अराटा. द चीफ kept looking at the tablet because there was no writing down of words on clay. This epic poem tells us that writing was a mean of storing information and sending messages. It was also mean as sign of superiority of Mesopotamian urban culture. Urbanization is a next topic is a urbanization is a southern Mesopotamia, temples and kings. From 5000 BCE, settlements had begun to develop in southern Mesopotamia. The earliest cities emerged from some of these settlements. There were cities that gradually developed around temples. Some cities developed as centers of trade and imperial cities. The earliest known temple was small. The earliest known temple was a small shrine made up of baked bricks. Temples were residences of various gods of the moon, god of Ur or the Irana, god of Ur or of Irana, the goddess of love and war. जो इराना किंग थे, वो गोडेस थी, जो मतलब नॉट किंग, गोडेस, वो लव और वार की गोडेस थी. Temples become larger over time with the several rooms around open courtyard. The temple was the house of God. The god was the focus of worship. People brought grain, curd, and fish to the god. The god was the owner of the agriculture field, the fisheries, and the herbs of local community. The temple gradually developed its activity. Oh, sorry, I forgot. And become the main urban institution. The processing of produce, for example, oil processing, grain grading, spinning, and the weaving of woolen cloth was also done in the temples. Next topic is agriculture subject to hazards. In spite of natural fertility, agriculture was subject to hazards. The natural outlet channels of Euphrates would have too much water one year and flood the crops, and sometimes they would change course altogether. There were man-made problems as well. Those who laid on the upstream stretches of channel diverted so much water into their fields, so villages downstream were left without water. Due to this, there were repeated conflicts over land and water in Mesopotamian countryside. Next is a warfare. So please don't get bored. We about 2-3 pages of notes remain. Warfare. In some regions, there was a continuous warfare. In this warfare, the victorious chief distributed the loot. They took prisoners from defeated groups and employed them as servants, example guards. The victorious chief offered precious booty to goods and beautified the community's temple. Sometimes they sent men out to fetch bring fine stones and metal to decorate the temples. War captives and local people were put to work for the temples or directly. For the ruler, they were paid rations. They list mentioned the quantity of grain, cloth, or oil against people's names which were allotted to them. Hundreds of people were put to work, yes, making and baking clay cones. The sculpture there were superb achievements. The potter's wheel was a technological landmark. The wet enabled to produce dozens of similar pot at a time. Life in a city. In Mesopotamia society, the nuclear family was the norm of nuclear family includes a man, his wife and children, also a married son, and his family often lived with his parents. And to the marriage, after then, a gift was given by groom's people to the bride's people. When the wedding took place, gifts were exchanged by both parties. They are together and made offerings in the temples. They ate together and made offering in a temple. At the time marriage, the daughter was given her share of inheritance as gifts by her father. The father's property was shared by the son. Absence of towns and plannings. In the 1930s, Urs, one of the earliest cities, ordinary houses were systematically excavated. Narrow winding streets indicate the wheel carts could not have reached many houses. Sack of grain and firewood would have arrived on donkeys' back. Narrow winding streets and irregular shapes of house plots indicate absence of town planning. There was no street drains. Trains and clay pipes were found in the inner courtyard of wood houses. The houses' roofs sloped inward, and rainwater was channeled via the drain pipes into covered basin in the ground samps in the inner courtyard.
ठीक है